I said to Jeff Pulver that I waited a little while before I could interview him because, you gotta get good at this stuff first because Jeff's world class. And Jeff has been my boss before. He's been my friend in arms. We've done a lot of different things, been a partner. And now he left an event to come and be a part of this show. So Jeff, thanks for coming on today. Thanks for being here.
I am grateful to be part of this. Thank you for inviting me.
I think I have a theme song somewhere. Backpack. Yeah, I guess that was it. Just happens. I don't know. It just shows up sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. You can see us on the edges of it, which is kind of creepy because, like you can see us hiding behind the video. So who knew? Jeff, you have, so if Scott Woodard is here, he always asks me this question. So I'll ask it to you. We all have, our made it moments. We have we're up here at the top. We are winning in every single way. But we learn stuff along the way. We stumble along the way. We run into a lot of interesting corners. Your experience, just to give people a quick background, is many things. You were involved in telecom very early on, voice over IP. You were a pioneer. You were a co-founder of Vonage. This is the thing people would most know about what you've done. Started an event called Von, which is voice on the net. It was like all about the future. Extended to video on the net. You've been ahead of the curve so far for so long, and on top of that, you've just stayed so active in building community. What's the part, if you could only say one sentence to somebody in an elevator about the thing you're proud of or whatever, with all those accolades, what's your thing?
I help change the way the world communicates.
Just simple and easy, just always the way. Scott says all the time he wants to know where people started from. One of my favorite origin stories of Jeff Pulver is ham radio. So we have to hear just a tiny bit of ham radio.
Well, ham radio saved my life. I should say that being a misfit early on in my life, I'm talking about being in third grade and not having any friends, being lonely, that ultimately saved my life and is why I'm here today. It was the discovery of ham radio and particularly the ability to communicate that enabled me to connect to the world, and it gave me the idea and the inspiration for what became free world Dialup that came out in '95, 7 years before Skype. That was the first phone network on the internet. But the origin really was that one day I come home from school. My dad had told me forever to contact one of his brothers, but my Uncle Fred shows up we're at my parents' house, my house at the time, and he takes me to his office and he shows me a wonderful factory tour of where he's at. And I come into a room that was rather small, maybe 100 square feet, not a big room, but he had a desk and he had a box and a microphone. And I sat on one side of the desk, he sat on the other, and he flipped a switch, and this box started to glow. And it's like, what's up with this? And I see he has a microphone, and he turns a dial, and I hear a lot of noises, but I'm hearing noises. He's hearing voices, and I didn't get that yet. And then he turned the dial to a clear spot where there was no noise, and he spoke this very cryptic code. He said, CQ, CQ, this is K2QQ, I'm calling CQ. And he repeats this for a minute. Let's go with the microphone. And then there was a roar for about a minute. And then he and he starts speaking. What he says is, my name is Fred. I'm in Farmingdale, New York, and you're 5'9". And what I didn't appreciate is that everyone he spoke to knew English. And it didn't matter where in the world they were from, they spoke English. And he gave a signal report of how he was being heard. And at the end of this, I realized my uncle had the cure for loneliness. And that all I had to do was to take that box, put it in my bedroom, and before school, I could have friends. If I got home from school, I could have friends. So I asked my uncle, being a good nephew, will you let me take your box back home, and so I could go on the air? And he says, no. And he says, no. I said, why? But it's me. Because you have to be licensed. You have to learn stuff. And it's like, what are you talking about? So I was 9 years old, but I had to teach myself Morse code, college level physics, and the rules and the regulations published by the Federal Communications Commission to be a ham radio operator. I was like, what? So it took about 3.5 years. But by the time I was 12 and a half, I had my license to communicate, and I haven't shut up since. And it was with that license to communicate, it was my license to innovate. It was my license to be a misfit. I got to do things that no one else ever did. I mean, as a young kid, I was one of those people that built up model rockets. We blast them off. I had chemical sets. We didn't need any permits from Homeland Security back then. I used to play with the great-great-grandfather of drones. I tried radio-controlled stuff, but my finger still hurts from all those trying to get those propellers working on those those radio controlled airplanes, mine never took off, but the rockets, they were fun. And it was fun to watch them blow up. It's like, we don't blow up enough creative things in good ways anymore. But as a kid, amateur radio was my savior, because I ended up building community. I learned at a very young age that there were 4 words that mattered. If you're 13 years old or 14 years old, you want to talk to people on the radio: to listen, to connect, to share, and engage. The same 4 words I talk about social media. And that, because, when you're 14, 15 years old and you're on the radio, most of the people I was talking to were in their 50s and 60s, and they were men. And they would basically complain about their jobs and their wives. And it's like, I didn't have a girlfriend and I didn't have a job. I was not interesting. So you learned that. And then I learned I had a very strong passion to connect and to be basically patch messages. And so back when I was growing up, it cost money to talk overseas. In fact, the call from New York City to Boston was a lot of money, but overseas was a lot. And so people were using radio to bypass long distance tariffs by making personal calls. So it's called a phone patch. And so I did that. I was able to patch people in from overseas to talk to their loved ones locally. And I felt like Radar on the TV show MASH, for those who remember that. Not that he was a role model. It's just, I felt like that. And that was my license to innovate. And I learned, and then I started building things and taking things apart. I
want to talk about one of those. I'm stepping in. I want to talk about one of those, because this is one of my, there's many stories of yours that I love to hear. One of mine is, I think it was a Trans Am.
Well, that happened next, right? So I want to go to university, and it's like, but I'm like, well, what am I going to do? So I found a way to rig up a phone patch at my base station at my parents' house. And I went to Hofstra, which was about, I don't know, a half hour away. And so in my Trans Am, I was able to make phone calls. So this is the early 80s. I had mobility, and I was able to make phone calls. And so I thought this was super cool. So when I was on campus at Hofstra, I was looking to people to demonstrate this to, and I would meet people, particularly girls, and I'd say if they liked, I wanted I tried to invite them to come listen to the radio and check things out. And I was quite embarrassed because no one really cared. And I appreciated that the ability to make phone calls and to connect was not really of interest to anyone other than myself. And maybe I was just rather disappointing at the time, but I did not know that. I thought it was super cool to be able to show technology and show I could make a phone call from my radio in my car. And that was an absolute disappointment. But the thing was, that phone patch that I used to bridge the telephone and the radio together, flash forward 15 years. And in 1995, that was the core base. That's the what I did to do the proof point that we can interconnect telephones and computers. Because I had this crazy idea: if I could do it for ham radio, why not do it with computers and telephones? And that became the foundation for a network that was free in a world of dial-up. And it's called Free World Dial-Up. And it went viral in the autumn of 95. And it was a very special thing. And it was the ham radio community that helped perpetuate the idea about it. And one thing led to another, and then I ended up losing my day job, which saved my life, because I used to work in the World Trade Center. And between the time I lost actually, it's really silly that between the day I got fired and the day and 9/11, I actually built a company and actually sold it the day before 9/11. So being lucky is okay.
Lucky doesn't hurt sometimes.
Doesn't hurt sometimes.
That's for darn sure. Jeff Sass called out by name, by the way, Estes Rockets, and I think we all started with those Estes kits, although
I still love them. But sometimes we had to, if you're in an open field, sometimes you put those rockets a little horizontal rather than vertical, because you're just curious what happens.
Happens sometimes.
They may explode. I mean, it's really frustrating. You spend 3 weeks building a rocket and the parachute doesn't deploy. Like, oh no. But where, those are the things I miss. Those are the things that gave me the opportunity to become myself. And you spend a generation denying who you are until you then find yourself inside you, and then you have the freedom to come out and be your truth. And one thing I advocate is being able to. It's one thing to communicate, but it's another thing to communicate who you are. I have a running belief that we wear masks, not necessarily the ones we should be wearing for these days for COVID, but we put on a sort of like from Billy Joel, the Stranger album, that we somehow come out and we're different roles, right? And like when I see you, I'm a certain person. I go see someone else, I'm a different person. I come home, I'm a different person. Why is it when we traveled that I'd meet a total stranger, I would share with them the most intimate detail what I was going through in my life right then, but I could never communicate to the person who meant the most to me what was going on? Why is it that when we communicate, we don't speak our truths? So I learned about all this, and for me, it's when you're young and don't know, you're able to do anything. And during those days of Estes rockets, I have to just tell you something I did also, because I learned about artificial intelligence, although it wasn't called AI back then. I had a friend of mine, my across the street neighbor, who I did all these things with, my friend Robert. And have you ever had like a friend growing up where every conversation was always the same, so predictable? So I had a tape recorder. So I would basically pre-record what I was going. I pre-recorded my expected responses to what I was going to say in dialogue, and for 6 months I'd call him on the phone and do play stop, and hang up, and I got it right basically every time. And he still doesn't know I did that to him.
Oh my gosh! Early AI.
My ham radio call sign has a BOT in it, a bot. So I'm one of the original bots, not even realizing what I was doing, but it was all about, anticipation, understanding, and connecting. And that was all fun stuff.
I want to do a little time travel, and I want to do a little time travel because it's always interesting as empires go. You co-found Vonage, you do all kinds of grown-up stuff. Somewhere in there, the Pulver order happens. You're one of the only people. You're the only person I know who has a law written after him in a good way, and all these big things. And then when I come and see you, you are a year or so into video on the net, and I come to see you because we were dumb enough to invite you to come to PodCamp, and you said yes.
Or maybe I invited myself, and you said yes.
We don't know. All I can tell you is this. I can tell you Justin Kanaki has some part of the blame because he's like, guys, you got to see this. And I was like, oh God. And you said yes. You came. It was a great time. Sparks flew. You enjoyed the experience of being on the set of Good Will Hunting.
Yes.
And then you on the spot basically say we should work together. And I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Yes.
And
it's like when you meet someone that you love, that you just feel the connection, you don't want to let go of it. And so I learned that already. So that's why I on that weekend I said that to you, because you're a very special man. You're a very special person, and the energy that you shared and conveyed was something which I'm grateful for identifying and seeing and knowing. And it's like, wow, this is a very special person. We
did some things too. I mean, video on the net was coming out. I mean, you had these incredible people like you've through the years of Vaughn. What I'm trying to say, by the way, by skipping just a tiny bit, I'm skipping the absolute apex of what Vaughn was when, it was just too big to fail and everything happens. And, the guests were insane. You had the Counting Crows as the band. You get to hang out with Adam Duritz.
I mean, what can I say?
And it's nuts. And then when I get there, things are shaking, things are changing. We all thought that we were the disruptors, but then the telco said, we can figure out VoIP, and then start, shifts. But what's true of you all the way that I see from the moment I started being, in your orbit, is that the worst things happen and the best things happen. And you just keep regrouping and restacking. And I've just never seen you quit. And I'm curious about that. I'm curious about how that works for you. How do you have the best and the worst things happen and really still just do everything you can to be, scrabbling forward?
For me, part of it is being passionate about what I do and being true to myself and understanding the truth of who you are and allowing that truth to give you direction. When I had a day job on Wall Street, I had lots of ideas about the early days of the internet. Back in early 1994, I had this crazy idea to do web-based email. And a friend of mine, a colleague I shared this with, said it was a stupid idea. And so I didn't do it. And then Hotmail happened. And then a few months later, had this crazy idea to do mortgage brokering on the internet. And someone said, bad idea. So I didn't do that. And when I came to it took me a little bit to realize, but I needed to find new friends. I needed to find people that wouldn't say no to me, or at least I understood that innovation happens because we see differently. And that if we wait around the world, if you see something and have an idea and you wait for someone else to buy into it, that idea may never happen. No amount of money has given us the opportunity to go back in time and relive something. But if you take those memories of what you did and go forward with it and learn that your idea might be different, people may not buy into it, but why not do it? You have a license, an opportunity to make stuff happen. So where I've been successful in my life is when I haven't doubted myself. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt gets in the way of manifestations. You have to let go. You have to be free. You have to release yourself. You cannot beat yourself up. We need to love ourselves more, by the way, which is a whole other conversation. But to answer your question, if I doubted myself, stuff could not happen. Being in the conference business, by and large, is you need to have titanium balls of steel, balls. Just hold on to it and just know, because if you're hosting an event and you show any worry, any fear, it will not happen. But conferences allow you to have manifestations of magic. And so as long as I didn't doubt myself, it worked. If I ever had doubt, those events failed. They failed before they even started. So when you learn, it's a difference between being absolute confident, crazy. I'm not talking about being crazy, because I did listen, but I didn't look to anyone else to buy into what I was doing. I failed by it too, but it's how I learned to be, because I'm not always understood, but sometimes I see the future and I protect the future for others at times. The Pulver water story is all about that. And being able to know that you carved out a piece of time for the rest of the world to communicate effectively for free is not a bad thing. And
it's not. One of the things I wanted to say about that, it's funny, the titanium ball story. When I ever tell one of my favorite pieces of advice ever, I always say the same thing. I said, I'm going to tell you now the second piece of advice that Jeff Pulver ever gave me. And I never say what the first is. And they ask me, and I'll say, well, you can come ask me on the side of the stage. I'm not saying it into this microphone. And, but it's true. The first thing you said, you got to be in the titanium balls business. And you are going to say, you live or die by your database. Yeah. Chris Penn and I, when I heard you say it, I repeated it. When Chris Penn heard me say it, Chris Penn said, that's everything. Now, what you and I have come to realize is that people hear that in two ways. They hear it like a marketer hears it, and they're wrong, and it goes horribly wrong. And they hear it like a guy who has lived in his list 30 plus years. Like everything you do is about you thumbing through those names. I don't even know how you sort them, but you just thumb through and you go, oh, this thing. And then you make it happen from that collection. Talk about how you gather the people that make your real list. Your manchu is what I say nowadays. Talk about that for a second.
Well, the real list. I'll just re-amplify.
Clean me up.
The reality of titanium balls is it's the absolute confidence. It's when you believe in yourself and it shows. You put out an energy, a vibration, a frequency that others who may not speak your language can feel it intuitively. It's like, and when you invite guests, if you have any doubt in your invitation, if they pick up any doubt, they'll say no. But if you feel good about yourself, you're able to raise the vibration of everyone else around you. And so I'm someone who believes in serendipity and synchronicity. I'm somebody who will travel around the world and host events, networking events, normally around breakfast amongst strangers, as a way not for me to increase my connections, but to help the strangers who may come through the door meet somebody. I learned a long time ago that the next person you meet can change your life. My dad explained to me that sometimes the best gift you can give someone is to believe in them. And when you can bring these things together, you can change the world. And that as much as I appreciate the power of many, I believe in the power of one, which is much stronger than the power of none. And one person can make a difference. One person can start a revolution. One person can do so many things. And so when it comes to curating lists of people to bring together, I dream. It's like when I was doing Vaughn and I wanted the CEO of Level 3 Communications to come on board. Why in the world would Jim Crow say yes? Who am I? But he did. I mean, it took me almost a year to get him to say yes. And I was, I'm obsessive. I do not let go. And so when I called his admin from wherever I was in the world, I even used a payphone. I remember calling from Heathrow Airport once because she called me back in the office. I didn't have a cell phone there. And he spoke. He electrified the crowd. I think it was Spring '99 Vaughn in Las Vegas. We had 2,000 people in the room as delegates. And he electrified the crowd, him and Reed Hunt and a few others. And it was just an amazing feeling of a conference when the energy, it was just pervasive. It's like being at any kind of concert you've ever been at where the whole room was electrified. That's what we had. And it was so special. So how do I choose the names? Well, sometimes it's people that just come to my mind when I dream. I'm a shower person. I think being grounded is a beautiful thing. And it's some of the best ideas I have that I remember came from showers, long walks, drives where I'm connected to nature or something. And then I look for people and not everyone, there are people who go on journeys, and I've had at the conferences people that are not so famous at the beginning, but they become rock stars on the venues because they share a message which ultimately is appreciated and understood. And if it's not, I still made a difference. And I treat everyone the same in terms of this. I'm open to sharing a voice. I was thorn in the PR side. I still remember a company called 3Com when I met a young engineer who had an amazing story about tech innovation. And when the PR department heard about this, they wanted their CTO to speak. I said, no, I want this kid, if he's in the mailroom, but he has this responsibility. He's an amazing voice.
Right.
Him. And they forced me. They said, well, we're going to withdraw from the show if our CTO doesn't speak. And I almost said, don't come, but I relented, and I still had the kid come. But I really like, for me, it's the people with the vision, the drive, the ambition, the energy, that magic. That's what I look for. And so when I'm curating an event, I just think about what do I want? One of the keys as to success is to imagine what people were to leave the event feeling.
Right.
One thing about what will attract them, but I'm looking at when they leave, what did they do? What did they remember? So I learned having fun seriously. That's not just a line. That's a truth. I was one of CAA's largest, tiniest companies ever. Whenever I heard a band playing on the radio, I would sometimes invite them to play, and I paid the price for it. I produced private concerts because I learned that if you can convene companies from all over the world, and these engineers, they don't always agree about stuff, but if you can create an environment where they can have fun a day and a half into a rather intense conference, magic happens. And I didn't have to spend so much money on marketing because it was the fun that people remember that bring them back. And I'm all about fun in a serious way.
Right.
I mean, look, I used to have a summer party in Chicago at the House of Blues when this major telecom trade show, Telecom Trade Association would have their conferences. Supercom was taking place. I had no business in Chicago, yet for 3 or 4 years, I did a House of Blues party during Supercom,
and
it
packed
came to the point. Oh, it was packed, and it came to the point where one of the top sponsors of Supercom paid us money so all their clients get front of line access at my party. And it's like, finally the Supercom people relented and said, okay, we support you too. But I was doing it just because we could. And I liked doing the floor shake from the drumming. It was just magical.
It's I want to attempt to correct one thing you said.
Oh,
you said you treat everyone the same.
No,
I have seen vividly that is not true, and I'll explain how.
Ooh.
You treat drones and robots and corporate monkeys just like that. You could pick a weirdo out thousands of feet away, and then you say, that's the one. That's who I want. I want that weirdo with magic energy. And I have seen you elbow normal people who have given you tens or 20s of thousands of dollars to be in an event out of the way to make room for like some lowly video blogger with like 100 people, because you felt that person had some energy that needed amplifying in some way. Now, the second thing I want to add to this is when you told me the first time we take having fun seriously, I laughed and thought to myself, that is so silly.
Did I not take you to did I not go to Los Angeles?
It was, I think it was there. Oh my gosh, before the trip. Oh my gosh. The parts of that trip I remember were legendary. But one thing I'll say is that you could, if you wanted a tattoo, we take having fun seriously would certainly be a tattoo, because that's a credo you have lived more than any human. But no, you don't treat people seriously, just like you wanted that stockroom kid way more than you ever wanted some exec, because you need the person who absolutely has to set things alive. It's kind of interesting. We're suddenly in water here. We have oceans, which I've seen Jeff Pulver take some of the best ocean pictures ever in my life. Each drop has a rippling effect. So Carrie says that she's more like a river flowing down a mountain, which is song lyrics. And then there you go. So Carol says, you got to love the weirdos. They're the ones who make the biggest difference. You can rebut now, but I think I'm right.
I'm not rebutting. I agree with you. It's fall 98 Vaughn, when we were just growing and taking off, when Vaughn was not necessarily a sure thing as a winner. I was graced with the presence of IBM's person who had a $6 billion business unit behind him. And it was very big news for the world of internet communications to have IBM come in and announce they were doing internet telephony, let alone that they were going to sponsor our show. Like, wow, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I went into the main stage and I walked in, and this gentleman, this really nice guy, much larger, bigger than me, taller than me, he starts talking about the benefits of being an IBM customer. And I run to the person who was his handler. I said, okay, is there just one slide about this? No, he's just getting started. I threw him off stage. IBM did not sponsor Vaughn for 10 years. They have a good memory. And I basically explained to everybody that if you wanted to talk about why IBM came into the internet telephony space, please do so, because you are an encouragement. You're a light in the room, that your presence validates so many other people and their dreams, and you being involved helps so many others make their living and actually will inspire change. But for you to come here and sell why you should be a customer, really? There is a sponsorship room you guys could just direct people into. And so from that point forward, I kind of like avoided the main room whenever I could, because I would have a tendency to want to throw everyone off stage. But when you're curating the event, I don't do pay to play. I actually invite people to speak based on my understanding of who they are and what they're about to do, not necessarily what they've done. That I kind of project the music they're going to be creating and evolving. I mean, I had a record label for a few years, and the one thing about about artists is that sometimes it's a third album that they really start to shine, and sometimes you have to you have to invest enough to get to the third album, and with startups, the third pivot. And sometimes you meet someone who's working and you want to invite them. They don't know, why did you just get invited? Why did you invite me? What am I going to do? I said, it's not what you've done, it's what you will do. And I was right most of the time. And sometimes it was a first speaking gig of someone's life, and they were terrified. But their message was compelling, and I will forever do that. And I'm grateful to the companies that can afford to sponsor my dreams. I accept that, and I'm very happy to find ways to collaborate and work together. But your company will be speaking at the conference because you have something meaningful to say, and I'm that filter. And just because you can afford to write a big check, you cannot dominate. I remember the first days of On, for the first almost 2 years, everyone had a 10 by 10 booth. I didn't care who you were. And then at the same conference that I had the issue with the IBM, 4 major competitors came to me. By that time, each of them had acquired 12, 15, 30 companies each. And they said to you, if you don't allow us to have larger booths, we're going to pull out because you're not allowing us to be competitive. You're creating an anti-competitive space. I was like, right. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. So I allowed the larger booths to be sold, but it was really about attempting to be fair. It's not about trying, it's about doing, right? It's do or do not. There is no try. And I live that. And so when we look to create, it's to be open to what the world can give us. And I believe in manifestations, and I do believe dreams can happen. If you hold on to the dream, magic will follow.
Jeff, you have all your life. I mean, everybody says they love music. You've all your life loved music. You've more than loved music. You let's just be honest. You bring Counting Crows because you really just want a few minutes to sit on a rug with Adam Duritz.
I did. I spent an hour with him.
And by the way, you should give away the fact. I don't know. Maybe these people are worthy of the fact. The little detail we know about round here.
Yeah, well, there's as a DJ, I always bothered me why there was an 11-second pause at the beginning of the album, and he said, "Well, because there was an organ and had to warm up." And it's like what? And it's it's like he stepped out the front door like a ghost into the fog, and no one notices the contrast of white and white. In between the moon and you, angels get a better view of the crumbling difference between wrong and right. Like, amazing words.
People wonder why I throw song lyrics into my stories. You're totally.
It's like, but the Adam Duritz was great because he was there. He actually refused to sing round here at the event, but he did other stuff. He sang "Friend of a Devil." And it was like, because it was his tribute to the Grateful Dead, and it was just, and Jerry, but it was just a beautiful thing. But yes, look, I've loved music my entire life. In another life, maybe I was someone there. In the music space, I will tell you that when I was in 11th grade, I was very jealous of a particular person I was in high school with, because when I was so shy. I was a typical wallflower at parties. I didn't say a word to anyone. But then I saw this guy who I thought was a wallflower too, but he played piano, and he somehow got the girls. He got the interest. He was like the guy.
Yeah.
So as a present to me, when I was going to my senior year in high school, my mom got me piano lessons. This guy, Jean Valjean, teaches me piano, and I learned. He taught me the basic training stuff, the exercises, and within a few weeks, I started playing music I wanted to play. So he taught me what I should learn, and then I started doing Billy Joel, and I was doing some Led Zeppelin at the time. And then I was composing in the blues. And in June of my senior year, right about before I graduated high school, of all the things to tell a 17-year-old kid, he said, "Jeff, you could have been great, but you started too late."
Oh my God.
And I didn't attempt to go to a keyboard for over 20 years after that. And in my life, I never want to be that person to say those words of discouragement, because I believe at any age you could learn something new. Every day we start a new day, we have a chance to be different. But that kind of like blew me out and destroyed me, and whatever confidence I had in being able to play piano just disappeared. I was able to play Billy Joel's Mexican Connection though before he said that to me, so I was able to figure out some of the sounds. And Angry Young Man, I was really getting into all the Billy Joel, because being on Long Island, Billy Joel was one of the guys.
I mean, what are you gonna do?
But no, that destroyed me. But I did run I might have been associated with a pirate radio station growing up. And then when we were doing things for real, you know, with Pulver.com, I did start Pulver Radio, and we did have a really good sound. And we got to program the music we wanted to hear, and it's for sometimes fiercely independent with music. The summer before American Idol, I did co-produce an event in Las Vegas, which brought together about 700 artists applied for it. It was and we had it was a music conference where we educated musicians during the day, and they played on like 13 different stages at night. It was a bizarre, crazy moment, but fun.
You imagine?
Yeah, but no one at the office wanted to do the music conference because they didn't want to deal with all the musicians, and I was in awe. It was so much fun.
You know, it's I have 10 million stories. We already did a half an hour.
I'm sorry.
No, please, no. There's so many more. But we didn't even talk about LA. We don't have to.
Well, you have that LA memory. You know, the fact that you didn't watch HBO or you didn't know the references.
You know what?
I was so proud. That I actually curated a visit. I wanted you to see what I discovered.
All right, let me tell them at least the sketch.
At a time that I could.
This will be a great segue into what I really do want to talk to you about. But Let me tell the sketch, because it is perfect Jeff Pulver. This is pure Jeff. Jeff says, let's go to LA. We're going to go on an entourage tour. And I go, yeah, that sounds fun, Jeff. I'll be in your entourage. So we're going to these places. And Jeff is taking me, we can't brag. It's ghost. Jeff takes me to really expensive restaurants and really expensive this and that. And we go to these places. I'm staying in the Beverly Hills Hotel in a bungalow. I couldn't even put it on my card just to hold the room. I had to call Jeff. I'm like, they're not even going to let me in. The night ends amazingly. Like, we go all over LA. We end up in Compton at this party, this incredible tech party. And I end up ill at points of this because there were some really nice people on Sunset that really liked Jeff's tipping methods. So somewhere near the end of this entire debacle, Jeff says, how have you enjoyed this? This is the entourage tour, man. And he's like naming all these places. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in your entourage. And Jeff hears it again. And he's a very smart man. And he realizes I'm saying I'm in your entourage, not this is just like Entourage. And his face collapses. And he goes, have you ever seen Entourage? And I said, I've seen those, like when the guys are all hanging out together. Yeah. I mean, it's cool that it's just two of us, but yeah. And you're like, no, have you seen the show by HBO Entourage that stars Adrian? What's his name and all that? I'm like, no. And it was like, I told him there was no Christmas and kicked him in the balls at the same time. And Jeff is so loving. We are at the Century City Mall, and he finds me season 2 DVDs because they didn't have season 1, and hands them to me. He goes, this is what I was doing. I was like, oh God. And it was like the opposite of trying to make a magic moment for you. I had all the magic in the world. And that's Jeff. So now the segue from that awful story that still fills me with so much odd joy because I had so much fun not knowing. You are an investor, and you are notoriously early to the party. You have made some great wins, but my gosh, if you just wait a few years on every great idea you have, you would win more. What's it like, and how does that work? And how do you ever try to tune that strategy, or you just keep throwing it at the dream? What does it mean to be Jeff as an investor?
Well, it's I use a lot of rock and roll analogies as the investor. I have not been an active investor as I used to for lots of life reasons, but when I was active, somehow from the early days of 97, 98 till not that long ago, I did about over 400 companies. And I will mention that for those of you who have kids or yourselves playing Fortnite, one of the other companies I started was Vivox, and Vivox became, by some magical reason, the company that provided voice to Second Life and the voice engine that's inside of Fortnite. They became the largest provider of hosted voice services for massive multiplayer online games. Although when they got started, they were supposed to be adding voice to love and romance sites. So in terms of how do you do this? Well, it's all about the people for me. And if a typical day when I was sitting down with startups, it would be literally 13, 14, 17 back-to-back meetings scheduled for 20 minutes to 30 minutes with a few minutes in between just to have space.
Right.
And the first thing I would do is ask this company, who's your lead singer? And they didn't get this at first. And they said, well, but I said, well, who's the CEO? And because I don't expect a lead singer in a band to play an instrument, but I expect them to have stage presence. And I expect them to be able to hold the crowd and hold the energy and understand it. And then I asked them, who's the drummer? Because in most bands, the drummer keeps the beat. Yes, they're not always drummers in bands, but we don't have to go there. But that to me is the person, even in a small company, the one responsible for getting stuff done. And then the real thrill was, okay, and what are you, a cover band or are you making original music? And that was my way of trying to find out, are they doing something brand new, or are they copying and they want to be yet another semantic search engine company? Like what's up with that? Because I remember once sitting, that whole idea came to me because I sat in 5 pitches in a row. I didn't even know what semantic search was, but 5 companies in a row said, we're doing semantic search just like so-and-so. Like what?
Right.
So I started asking them about being a cover band. And finally, I asked them, what genre of music are you in? Because in music, you go from ska to hard acid rock, and you can create a new genre of music at any time. Same thing in tech. What's now prop tech, which is people building technology for property, right? That we didn't call it prop tech that long ago. No. And so people are inventing. So I want to know how's that going. And then the other thing was about amplification, because if you've ever been a fan of any musician, band or otherwise, you know their music, and you show up to concerts, you may not sing it out loud, but you know the words. And I wanted to know who sings the praises of this startup, who's amplifying their message so other fans can get involved. How do you connect to your audience? How do you get amplified? And so that's how it starts. And for people who don't have any of that because they're really just an idea, I learned a hard lesson not to invest in singer-songwriters as much as I want to, because in the end, if you're a singer-songwriter and you're going on tour, you have a band, you have a backup team behind you that lets you front for them. But these are the musicians that are in sync with your life. And so if you're an entrepreneur with a great idea and you want to raise money from Jeff because you want to go build a prototype, well, what happens is, you just spent my investment to build your prototype, but you didn't build a company. You may have proven and disproven you had a great idea. And it turns out you need to have enough money out there. I mean, the reason I want to meet the team is I want to know, is this a strong enough team that can let go of where they're at and pivot into their success? If someone went to university and graduated with a certain degree, I promise you 15 years later, most likely than not, they're not practicing that degree. They became who they would be. It was destined before. I'm a very big fan of not that I'm a fan of dropping out of school, but I'm a very big fan about self-education. I had to teach myself what school gave me structure, which I fell in and out of. But I had the opportunity to teach myself. I had to learn by doing, by living that life of being. And a company that wants to go out and change the world, God bless them. I hope they have the tools and the resources to do so. It's not about the money. It's about the dream and being able to have the stamina to work through the hard days to get to that success. Just like a rock band on the road, playing the small places, not getting any money, but building their sound together so that when they are heard by the right person, magic happens. And so for me to be on that bleeding edge, and the other thing is that I never had an unlimited source of funds. And with my dad, who passed away he passed away, April 98, but he used to explain to me the benefit of meeting someone new is you can have a positive effect on who they are if you believe in them. And so if someone pitched me who had never done anything before, and I liked what they were doing, I would love to be the first money in because I helped make a dream happen. And it's not a charity. It's that I'm able to speak my truth and be there with them for the start. And I'm very lucky that a few companies I was there at the very beginning for, I helped them get their start, and one or more of those companies may have gone public, and I may have done really well by being generous early on. But a lot of people failed because they couldn't share that dream with other people and enough people to have enough capital to get going. But it didn't stop me. I continued down this path of being the person, and I was really good as for tech A&R, if there's such a thing, because occasionally the company I invested in failed, but 2 startups later, and now they're a unicorn company.
Right.
And I know I knew them when, and they know that I knew them when. And the thing about Vaughn that to me was the most magical is that during the 11 years from 97 to 2008 that it was something I was part of, we had over 120 companies get acquired by 7 of our sponsors, and 35 or 36 of the companies there went public. So we helped change the lives of so many people by embracing fun, real tech, and be able to touch policy. And so to be on the bleeding edge. So I had a purview of being people would pitch me all the time. And I didn't like being just money. So if someone came in and said, "Oh, I just raised $7 million. Will you put $50,000 into this?" I generally said no without even listening.
Right.
Because if I'm just a name on a cap table, I'm not interested. But if someone has an innovative technology that I understand, and Twitter was the first time I ever invested in something that I was actually actively in, I was able to help. And I would never self-promote. Of course, one of my challenges is that I would never really self-promote any of my own investments ever.
Right.
I have like this wall in my mind that this is what I do, but I won't promote because I just won't do it, which is a disappointment to everyone I invested in. but at the same time, they're all equal. And so I look for the people where my magical pixie dust can add value to them, and I'm not just an entry in a cap table. And it's worked out for better or for worse. And I had prior to the COVID life that we're in, I was writing a book called Startups Rock. And I actually paralleled rock band life and startup life, and I took that parallel, the metaphor, the simile, whatever it is, to a far extreme. And I was in the process of getting quotes from rock artists to talk about startup bands, because it's amazing. If you're in a rock band, there's a good chance that someone you went to high school with has been your friend for life. And you have to be careful who you choose to be in your company, because you may not be able to choose your relatives, but you can certainly choose who you're spending time with. And that's why I tell startups and bands together. And I actually had a record label. We actually had bands, and it's magical stuff. Music is one of those things that transcends life. It's the rhythm and the beat that gives us the higher vibrations. And if you're able to be that part of that connective tissue that helps make the world go around, it's a beautiful place to be.
I am going to take a page out of your book and make a comment available so that we can talk about it for a quick second. Rochelle has been saying that you give amazing hugs, by the way, amongst other things. Jeff, we had the opportunity to connect during the efforts surrounding the Haiti earthquake. I know I've taken a lot of lessons from that time. Which ones did you learn that you've carried over to your work? And hi, it's been a minute.
For me, it was the back channel. What the Haiti earthquake showed to me was that Twitter would change the world, the way we communicate, because there's a back channel, and that everyone's voice could be amplified, that one voice can be amplified 1 million times, that one person can make a difference. And that through the back channel, we were able to communicate with large brands. We could shift what happens. And we've never had that before. We never before had a public back channel that we could connect with anyone. It's sort of like when email was brand new, you could actually send an email to a famous person, not so famous person, and talk to them because there are no filters. Twitter still works the same way. If you can connect with someone who you follow, you could be heard and be seen. And it was the Haiti earthquake that led me to being trapped in an elevator with Ann Curry and 8 other people on social media in the New York Times building. There's still a Gawker story about it. You can read about it. That was the next day. Ann Curry gave a shout out to me on the Today Show because of it. And it's all about that back channel, though. What I learned is every voice matters. It was re-amplified, and that it doesn't matter whether you have 1 million followers or 2. That you just have to be heard by one, and that can do it. And the world gets together for when there's trauma. We come together as one world to help Haiti. We could still, a lot of places still need a lot of help, but we're able to communicate in ways we never expected. And there's hope. There's opportunity to be love, to be the love that gives. And all you're doing is sharing your voice or amplifying your voice so others are heard. And it's passive, not so active, but you can make a difference. Every time you retweet someone, you're helping other people get discovered. And you just never know the impact of what you're going to do or how it's going to be received, hopefully in a positive way.
Hopefully in a positive way. Well, Chloe says, Twitter really did change the way the world communicates, unlike any other social platform. You and I are all in and around most of them. Is Twitter still home? Like, where do you feel it the most? Where's your spot?
Here right now, that I believe in the intimacy of speaking one-to-one. Even if this is being broadcast, there's an energy between you and I. and those that are listening live that are connecting right now that you don't have in other platforms. I like hosting. I've been hosting Zoom chats for the past, I don't know, the last few weeks, connecting people, bringing them together. They may find out about the event on Twitter or some other places. And yes, I will tweet and retweet what I hear. But we're constantly evolving how we communicate. But the big thing about this whole pandemic is that voice matters. I've always said that voice is the killer app. And I mean that no matter how we evolve with technology, being able to talk to somebody who's a loved one in a meaningful way matters the most when you can't see them face to face, when you can't get close and share a hug. Being able to reach out and literally talk to someone is the most meaningful, heartfelt thing you can do. So in some ways, voice matters the most to me. And it's the intimacy and the authenticity of being the true you, sharing your voice. Again, not what's supposed to be, but what is. And being your truth and speaking your truth, that's what matters the most. And that's any platform that offers me a chance to be seen and be heard, I'm all in for. What I don't like about Twitter and Facebook and Instagram anymore, it's not real time. I'm a big fan of synchronous communications. I know asynchronous communication exists and that there's a higher AI that thinks that when I go onto Facebook, I should see your post from 4 days ago. That's mind-numbing, amazing to me. But I always do it now because I don't always go to the Chris Brogan Facebook page. So I miss out on some posts because it's like, excuse me, but like I'm busy and I go on, I look at a stream, like I don't realize the age of some of those posts goes back 5 days. And it's like, wait a second, there was a time when you posted something, I saw it immediately. And if I'm on Twitter, in Twitter things, I should see your live stuff, great. But I don't like being out of sync with people who I like and respect and want to be connected to. I feel like an idiot because I'm just out of sync with that reality. And so I'm all in for synchronous communication, even if it doesn't scale. I love the intimacy of the moments. I love being able to be connected as one and feel that. Maybe life for me is always that rock concert where we're on stage. And whether you're the performer on the stage in front of the crowd or you're in the crowd, there's a vibration and energy that goes strong. And that creates moments that we interweave, becomes memories that we remember. And that's how I still look at the world, that we're able to connect as one at a high level. And so any platform that gives that to me and brings back those positive memories, I'm in. And so sometimes it's email, as archaic as it sounds. I understand it's not going to be a Gen Z thing, and millennials won't understand email. I use email because there's some people who read my emails. And I'm a guy who not until a long time ago used Pine, but probably no one watching this knows what Pine is, so it's okay. I don't have to be so embarrassed that I was very late to the Gmail game. But it's whatever platform allows me to be connected at the highest level. Like I'm now using amateur radio as often, if not more, than I did when I was in high school and college. I am dealing with technologies that will be used for interstellar space communication, literally created by an astrophysicist. I'm now actually as a ham where I'm sitting right now playing with digital communication. And so I'm having the most fun. So as far as where I go personal, one-to-one, one-to-many. I know none of us scale the way that AI scales, but I get to be me, and whatever platforms allows my voice to be heard is where I go. I did start a podcast recently about a year ago. I go on LinkedIn sometimes to go live with it, but it's the intimacy of the moment. It's not so much how many followers you have, but how many friends you can keep and how many lives you can have a positive influence to and share. That's what I go for. And I like to think that I'm doing things that are meaningful, that are maybe appreciated, but as long as I know I'm coming from a good place, I will continue to do the good stuff. And I just enjoy being able to help others connect and engage in ways. Because as you get older, when I went to high school, we had a homeroom. I didn't always get along with the people in my homeroom class, but I got to see them every day. And every year in high school or junior high school, there were different people. I live in a world right now, there is no homeroom. And it's like, why not? So I kind of like do some of these gatherings to create my new homeroom. So when I do a weekly breakfast meetup, there'll be some people from my grade who are there. I see them every week and we catch in. And then there are new kids in the class who come in from all over the world. And it gives me like a grounded feeling that, wow, here are some new people. Let me help introduce them and allow and facilitate magic to happen.
You just left your breakfast of today because you're not really good at saying no. especially to people you
By the way,
like.
there's a very, very funny video made in Israel by the creator of the of the Netflix show, and that's called Fauda, Fauda.
I watch Fauda.
Lior Raz, who was a lead writer, he created the series, and he was an actor. Several years before Fauda, he was Spiegel the Shark. And there's a YouTube video that Spiegel the Shark teaches Jeff Pulver how to say no.
It didn't take, Jeff. It didn't take, just, you know. You were the yesiest no man in the world. So you left your own breakfast, but I think you mentioned there were more than 2 countries at that breakfast. I think
we had 10. We had about 10 countries that appeared. Most surprising was my friend Rehan, who's back in Pakistan. He joined us.
Yeah, so let's just put the little highlighter around that for a minute. I say quite jokingly that you are a highly esteemed part of the Jewish tech mafia. You know, the Israeli scene knows you well. You are back and forth to Tel Aviv a billion times in the day. Dr. Yossi Vardi and all that clan. You know, there's a thing. So to you to have Pakistan show up at this thing and feel welcome and feel everybody's okay, this is a deal. This is you know, it's big. It's not a small thing that's who you gather.
Yeah, well, I've if anyone goes to pulver.com and checks out, maybe it'll be updated, continue to be updated there. I list these events, and I met Rehan actually he followed me, I think, for 20 years. I met him for the very first time in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, not about a year ago.
Wow.
And I just didn't understand what he was doing. Was his mission is to help connect the world, and it's like he's his own version of the United Nations. He doesn't matter race, religion, color, anything. He just wants to be there to help connect and bring the world together as one. I got his message. It was received, and it was magical to see him. And he actually onboarded about 5 of his friends during the breakfast to experience some of my friends. And that was kind of special. And, you know, for me to be able to bring the world together as one, even just in a moment, just for fun networking, it was a wonderful experience. And, you know, I was the person who from 2006 to 2008 traveled to 18 cities. I hosted 25 breakfasts. I still remember being at South by in 2009, waiting online for registration. And I knew the oddest people from all these different communities, because no matter who was going by in registration, I hosted a breakfast meetup, and somebody online knew me from their city. And it's like, why? And like someone's observing, like, how do I know all these people? I don't know. How do I know all these people? But I went there to interconnect and to be present. And that's a nice thing about the global internet, is that we all matter together as one, and we all can connect. It's just, if you have connectivity, you can usually meet other people. And as shy as I might be in real life at times, people are not shy sending me an email. And so I get stuff and I respond, and it's all good. I like to think it's, I still have my coffee cup from today. Chris, you do rock.
Jeff, thank you. I appreciate that. That's very kind. Listen, everybody got the feeling they thought they weren't going to get, and they couldn't believe they did. You did a great connection here. Thank you so much for being part of it. Love you every day. Thank you for being who you are. And everyone knows how to find you. So all they have to do is be brave enough to reach out and say hi to you now.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to catch up. I look forward to one day seeing you in closer quarters.
For a real life hug, maybe.
Real life hug, yes.
Yeah, maybe an egg or 2. Hey, listen, great chatting with you, Jeff. Thank you for being here. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Catch you later. Everybody knows what happened. I'm going to push the button. So it happens right now.